Hello, everyone. I'm Jessie, founder and CEO of a tech startup called Twerk. We are a job platform that matches job seekers with recruiters through AI and swipe, not keywords and filters. We're like Tinder for jobs. And so I'm going to be talking to you today about how to pitch your business. I have gone through lots and lots of pitch competitions. I got second place in the Silicon Valley Startup Grind pitch battle, which had, I think it was like 25 businesses. And even though we are pre-launch, I still got second place over and above companies that were making millions of dollars in ARR, annual recurring revenue. And so it was really kind of cool. I've helped lots of other founders with their pitches, and one founder that I helped, she won a pitch competition right afterwards. And another founder whom I helped, she was in the same pitch competition. She didn't win, but she was the only other business to get a 5 out of 5 from one of the investor judges that was there. So anyhow, I'm here to help you learn how to pitch your business. Let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. While I'm doing this, I do have 5 rescue dogs. I am working from home. And so if they go crazy in the background, I will try to edit that out, but you might hear some of that. Okay. Anyhow, so that's me. We're going to go over pitching for startup entrepreneurs. And this is supposed to be basics, beginner level stuff. And I'm going to try to go over as much information as I can in the period of time that I have. So first, we're going to go over the very basics, and that is that everybody has an opinion, including myself, and some are better than others. It's important to kind of know their credentials and where they're coming from, and then you can sort of take the weight of the different advice that you hear from other people and decide who you're going to follow, or which people you're going to take advice from. But trying to take advice from absolutely everybody who offers it is going to make life miserable for you. So just consider the source and weigh your options. We're going to go over one-liners, and I'm going to put a heavy, heavy, heavy emphasis on your one-liner. It's really important, and there are specific ways to make sure that you craft a really good one-liner. We're going to go over pitching, oral versus visual. So what I mean by that is, let's say if you're pitching from the stage or on a Zoom, then sometimes you will be allowed to have slides and sometimes you will not. And having slides is not necessarily better. But if you end up making it huge, and let's say you are pitching orally, but somebody wants your deck. You want to have a deck that's ready to go. We will go over that. And also when it comes to pitching from the stage with a deck behind you, that can get really clunky and there are technical issues. So you will want to have that at the ready, but don't rely on it. Having your oral pitch down is really super important. So we'll go over that. We're going to go over various pitch lengths, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 to 7 minute pitch. And it is, they're very different. You can't have all of the information that you have in, let's say, a 3-minute pitch. You can't possibly cram all that into a 60-second. So we'll go over exactly the things that you need to hit in your 60-second pitch, and the longer ones too. Things to avoid in your pitch. Goodness gracious, do not skip that part. That's really important. I've seen hundreds of pitches at this point, and some have been very, very bad, and some people don't even know. They think they're saying a great thing, and they don't realize that if you're pitching to investors, that this is like nails on a chalkboard. They do not want to hear these phrases, and founders just don't know any better. So I'm going to tell you some of those things to avoid, and we'll go over your deck. And I have my own deck for Twerk that I've included for you. So that's kind of the sample that we're going to look at. I'm not trying to say that mine's perfect, but at least you can see something. And things to avoid in your deck as well. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, I am a tech startup founder. I'm also an attorney by trade, and I am a professor. I teach one class. I teach American government at Fullerton College, and so I might get a little professory in the way that I talk to you. I mean no harm whatsoever. I tend to be just direct and to the point, and I give examples, and I get very passionate. I'm a very passionate person. So anyhow, I wanted to also just mention I do run my own pitch competitions. I've done that before, so I'm very aware of what's expected in those things. And I do coach other founders on a one-on-one basis. Okay, so as I mentioned, everybody has an opinion, and just understand you're not for everybody, and not everybody is for you, and that is completely fine. That's good, because if you were for everybody, then you would probably be a very boring person, because you'd be so safe, you'd be so vanilla, and it means you wouldn't appeal to very many people also, because you'd be safe for everybody. So I just want to give an example. So my company the name of my company is Twerk, and about 90% of the people who hear our company name love it. They absolutely love it, and about 10% completely hate our company name. Nobody is meh or about our name at all. But the 10% of the people who really hate it They are extremely volatile about it. They're vocal about it. And I had this guy, I was at a booth at Startup Grind, their global conference in April, and this random dude came by our booth, and he wasn't even an investor. He was just some jackhole that was coming by our booth. And he said to my colleague that was with me, "Oh, bro, you got to change your name." And so I stopped talking to the student that I was talking to at that moment, and I said, "No, we're not changing our name. Thanks, bye." I was quite rude about it because he was taking up the space and taking up my colleague's time when he was trying to talk to other people who were positive about our business. And he's like, "No, no, you got it." I said, "No, we don't gotta do anything. So we're not gonna do that. And thanks, but drive through and I hope you have a great day." I wanted him out of that space because he was creating negative energy for us. Now, I'm not saying you have to be that hardcore. Okay. You definitely do not have to do that. But if everybody totally hated our name, that would be one thing. But most people like it. Some people hate it, and you're not going to please everybody. And I told him, we're not for you. You're not for us. That's fine. So we'll just never do business together. Have a great day. You'll hear people say that you have to do this or you have to do that. And the only way that you listen is that if everybody is going that way, then maybe take a listen. Or if you have no evidence that your business is actually going to work, or if there's no product market fit whatsoever, all right, well, listen up, change your tune. But you don't have to be scared by everybody who has a negative opinion about your business, okay? It might very well just mean that you're not for them and they're not for you, and you can just move on and get to the next person, okay? Great. So yeah, go with your gut and your heart. Also do your research because evidence is important. As somebody who is an attorney, our cases live and die by not just evidence, strategy as well, but evidence can definitely play a big part and often does, especially when we go to trial. So I tend to be very, very evidence-based, and that really works out for business as well. Okay. Your pitch is like your resume, and the goal is to get an interview. If you have a resume, the resume is not to get you to that job. The resume is there to get you the interview. So your pitch isn't there to get you the funding. The pitch is there to get you a next meeting with somebody, like one-on-one, because that's where your deck really comes in handy. You're going to have a full-blown presentation in front of a person, like whether it's an angel investor or a VC or whatever, or potentially, depending on where you're at in your business, a group of those deciders. And then you can go through your deck and you can take a little bit more time and be a little more precise. But it's not, when you're pitching from the stage or you're in a pitch competition, you might get funded right there and then, but it's highly, highly unlikely. Instead, what you're really going for is like, hey, if somebody's talking to you after your pitch, say, "Thank you so much for coming out to me. I really appreciate it. I would love to follow up with a meeting." This is like your close for that moment. Not your close for the whole deal, but your close for that moment. You don't want to say, "Okay, so like, here's my card and I'll talk to you later." No, close that person, get a next meeting, say, "I would love to follow up and talk further since this seems like we could be getting somewhere. It could be a good fit. Do you have time next Monday at 1 or next Friday at 9 a.m.?" Give them an option. And if they're like, "No, that's not going to work, but I have this," then you can get your schedule together. But instead of like, "Okay, great, let's connect on LinkedIn. That sounds great." And oh my God, don't do that. You're missing an opportunity to actually get them while they're there. Strike while iron is hot and get them to make that meeting with you. Okay. Just like how attorneys, I tell them, if you want to win cases, you lay out your evidence to a judge like that judge is a 4-year-old. Okay. So with investors, it's the same thing. You want to lay out the evidence that you have for your product or service, and you want to be laying it out so that a 4-year-old could understand what it is that you're doing. So a lot of times we come in and we use a lot of acronyms and like, "Oh, and our AI gives automated CBT." Well, everyone knows what AI is. So if it's a universal thing like AI, you don't have to explain. That means artificial intelligence. Everybody does know that acronym. But like CBT, I know that's cognitive behavioral therapy because I do lawyer work and that does come into play with what we're doing sometimes. But a lot of people aren't going to know, or if they're in a rush, they won't be connecting those dots. So a lot of people bring their industry related acronyms to the table when they're pitching, and that is a big, big mistake. So you want to make sure that you keep it simple so that even like a 4-year-old could literally understand what it is that you're doing. Okay. Before you even think of a deck, you need to focus on some other stuff, okay? If you can't say what you're trying to do in one sentence, then you are not focused enough. Some people think they have a business idea, and then when I ask them, "Well, what do you do?" They can't hone it in at all. They're like, well, we kind of do this and we kind of do that, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell it is that they're trying to do. I bring a lot of attorney analogies to the table because these two fields really pair up nicely. So if you want to win with a judge, you have to make it easy for them to say yes. So that means you lay out everything for them and you even draft an order that's blank, but just ready for their signature. You make everything absolutely ready for them. And if you can't even say what you're doing in one sentence and you're just like, well, we kind of do this and kind of do that, that person you're talking to has to do a lot of mental work, a lot of gymnastics trying to figure out what the hell you actually do. And they're not going to like that. That's not going to be a good look for you. So make sure that you are doing your work by putting what you do into one simple sentence. And we'll go over that. So don't worry about that if you're thinking like, how in the world am I going to do that? We'll go over it. The reason why it's important is because it becomes your barometer. When there's always like the shiny thing on the side that you can do this, you can do that, you can build this other product instead, you can add this feature and that feature and all this other stuff, especially when you like if you're a tech person yourself, like if you are the engineer yourself or if you're working with other engineers, it can be fun to build other stuff. But if that's not serving the core of your business, meaning the one sentence that your business is about, and if you haven't yet launched and scaled to like multiple millions of dollars of ARR, then maybe don't get distracted by the shiny other things that you could build and just focus on the thing that you're supposed to be delivering that people want and need that will solve their problem. Know the main pain point that you are trying to solve and for whom. So even if you can serve everyone, you want to focus on a target. You want to have like an avatar, like an audience, somebody that you're talking to. So if you're imagining that you're sitting down and talking to one particular individual, who would that individual be? What would they look like? How old are they? What are their demographics? Like, for me, I have two different audiences, and I know it's kind of weird. It depends on the actual stage of our launch. So at first, we are going to be talking to job seekers. So when I am creating a message for my audience, I know that at this stage, I'm going to be talking to job seekers. And then as soon as we have that launch wrapped up, I know I'm going to shift and my message is going to be to recruiters. Those are my customers. But when you are talking to an investor, the investor is your audience and they don't care that they're your consumer. So you don't have to sell them that they have to be the one using your product. And we'll go over that a little bit later. But your customer, if you're like wondering who's my customer, or if you think, well, I could use this person or could use that, how are you going to make money? Hey, what is the main way that you are going to make money? Who's going to pay you? And that can help you hone your audience and your avatar, who it is that you're talking to. So you want to know who's going to pay for your product, and you want to know what you're going to say first before you build a deck. So meaning don't build a deck first and then figure out what you're going to say as you're going through the slides. You want to be pretending like you have no deck, like technology isn't going to work that day for you. And if you're having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, because a lot of times this networking is happening and you can't say, oh, let me show you my deck real quick. You're at a networking event. That's not going to happen. So you know what you're going to say first. And then eventually you will build your deck around that part. That's how you're supposed to do it. And a lot of people do it the other way around and it's a mistake. Your one-liner is so important. Okay. Again, take my advice on balance and take other people's advice on balance, but I'm going to tell you my way to do it, or kind of my approach. Go with your gut and your heart. I can't emphasize that enough. So if anything I'm saying be open-minded, but if for some reason you're thinking, well, the reason why this isn't going to work is because, and you have really, really, really tested that with a whole bunch of people, not just like a couple of friends that and you know it's not going to work out that way, then fine. That's figure something else out, follow somebody else's advice. Totally, totally good. But make sure you remain open-minded. A one-liner is important because it is your first impression. It forces you to have clarity of thought. It filters the right audience so that way you're not talking to the whole world. You need to be able to have your priorities straight, and it makes you referable. I mean, if you say something to somebody and you're talking about your product and you don't have a one-liner that's like quick, short, and can say exactly what it is that you're doing in a way that is memorable, how is anybody supposed to be able to refer you? You have to make yourself memorable, and we're going to talk about how to do that. But if somebody can remember in like one sentence what you do and they kind of light your energy, even if you're not for them and they can't take you on at that point, they can still go to a friend that they have or a colleague that they know and say, I met this founder. We can't invest in them right now, but you should really check them out because this is what they do. And they can repeat your one-liner. Also, it makes it so that your team can repeat what it is that your business is doing. And if your team can't repeat it, that's a big problem. And your one-liner can also possibly be a differentiator. So one way that you can have a one-liner is to talk about the how. I like the how. I think that that's an important thing to focus on. There are lots and lots of ways to get to a one-liner. We're going to go over a few. You have to think about whether your one-liner is customer facing or investor facing. This is super important because your messaging is going to be different. Okay. I talk a lot about pitching to investors or potential investors, but if you're wanting to pitch to customers, it's a completely different ball of wax and how you put that forward. So with investors, you could use option one, which is to say basically what you do, who you are, and why and how you accomplish that thing. So what your product is, what your company does, who is it for? If I said who you are, that's you could use that too, but really who it's for, the audience. I misspoke if I said that. And why it's valuable. How are you different? You know, what problem are you solving? That's essentially what that boils down to. The why is about the problem that you're solving. So for example, down here, you have your product helps with or has some sort of verb, and then you talk about your target customer, the who, to achieve X result. You're talking about the why there by doing Y differently. That's a bit formulaic and a bit abstract. So we'll put it together a concrete example, which is Twerk. It's my company. Twerk helps job seekers to get jobs faster through our proprietary AI algorithm. Okay, fine. So the proprietary AI algorithm, that could be the differentiator. I think that, you know, this is not my favorite one-liner, but it would work. It might pique somebody's interest and say, huh, so like you have a proprietary algorithm. So you're not just like wrapping your product around something else, like you've created your own. Okay, tell me more about that. So anyhow, and getting jobs faster, that automatically sort of talks about the problem that people are having, that it takes them forever and we help them do it faster. So that could work. You could do a sort of reverse option one, which is it's customer facing. And this is based upon like Simon Sinek. So if you don't know who Simon Sinek is, I think his last name is spelled S-I-N-E-K. And he has, you know, lots of really popular books. And one of them, oh my God, like his big one, I think it's called Start With Why. It's a good book. It's fine. So you want to say why the thing you're doing is valuable and or different and how, and then say what your product does. So you want to talk about the result that people are going to achieve and then how you're doing it differently and then with in the name of the product. So get your next job faster. Get your next job faster through AI and swiping with Twerk. I mean, that's kind of like, you know, it's solving people's pain point because it's taking people forever to find jobs. So if you're saying faster, well, how are we going to do that? And then through AI and swiping, that may or may not be enough for people. Everything's AI now, so people might not really care too much about that part. Swiping, they may or may not care about. I think the younger generation will, but you know, you get the drift. You get the formula and how to do it. So if you're talking to customers, then this is an option for you. Option two, this is investor facing only. Okay, I think let me see the next line. Okay, I'm going to go over legal issues here in just a second. Okay, so option two, investor facing only. Do not do this with customers because like it can open you up to lawsuits. So just be careful. But if you can say that your product, it's like a marriage between an already well-known product and but with a different industry, then you can easily use that as a way to pitch investors. So what I say is that we're Tinder for jobs. Now, I'm not the only company that says this, and I'm totally aware of that. It might be the first time that the investor that I'm talking to has heard anyone talk about that. Or at least it very quickly tells them what it is that we do, even if we're not the only ones. I'm not worried about that, but it's repeatable. It's very repeatable, and people kind of get immediately what it is that you're trying to do. So they can go and tell a colleague, even if they can't invest in me, or my team can easily repeat, we're Tinder for jobs. It's super easy to remember. Option three is talking about the benefit first. This is customer facing. Okay. If I don't put customer facing, all the rest of these are investor facing, but this one is customer facing, and you get X result without the whatever the pain is. So get matched to personalized targeted jobs without scrolling for hours. So that pain point is something that people do not want to do. They're sick of doing it. You are going to solve that for them. So they're going to get this great result and without the pain that they're trying to avoid. So that's another way to have your one-liner. And you don't have to pick one liner for each. Just do the exercise, make a one-liner according to all these different options, and then like pick which one you like the best. But the goal is to really, it's going to help you hone what it is you actually do. It's a good exercise to go through. Option four is called plain spoken, and that's to say we do this thing for whatever audience, whatever people, your target market, who need it most or who want to avoid this pain. So we pre-curate job candidates for recruiters who need to stop spending hours sifting through resumes. So this is customer facing, well, not customer facing, it's investor facing, letting them know that our audience is actually recruiters. So this will be later down the road with Twerk, but letting them know, hey, recruiters have this pain point of sifting through resumes for hours, but we pre-curate the job candidates for them, for the recruiters, and it's going to solve a pain point, and investors like that. Okay. Option number 5 is aspirational. This is customer facing. So you're empowering X to do Y. We're empowering job seekers to find their dream job. That's not my favorite one because I don't like to BS people and to overpromise. I might be able to help them get their next job, but like their dream job, I don't know. I think that's a little too fluffy. So this is not my favorite, but it could be your favorite. It doesn't matter if it's not my favorite. If it works for you, then fantastic. You can mix it up. And this is what I do. I have a mix of 2 of these options and it works for me. I just put a semicolon between these 2 sentences. So you can talk about what the product does, the verb, the how, and not whatever the competition does. And then I do the whole, take a known quantity, a known company, and say that it's for our industry. So here's what I do. Twerk is a platform that matches job seekers and recruiters through AI and swiping, not keywords and filters. Think Tinder for jobs. That's my one-liner. I use that all the time. And even though I messed it up at the beginning of the day, this is what I use all the time for people. Hi, what do you do? Hey, my name is Jessie. I'm the founder of Twerk. We're a platform that matches job seekers with recruiters through AI and swipe, not keywords and filters. Think Tinder for jobs. And it's just, even if it's not precisely as it's swipe instead of swiping, everything else is like basically the same. It's like 95% the same every single solitary time that I say it. But is it missing the why? Is the way that I choose to do it, is there a problem with it? Is this missing the why? And I don't think so. And the reason is because the not part, the not keywords and filters, there's an implicit why there. And the implicit why is that people hate that and that keywords and filters are not cutting it. And that is old technology. And so I think that by saying not whatever it is the competition is doing that sucks, you don't have to say it like that. You don't have to be so mean, but if you want to be, that's fine. That kind of, in a nutshell, talks about the why without talking specifically about the why. So I hope that makes sense. All right, pro tips. Avoid jargon unless your entire audience lives in that world. So let's say if you're presenting to a very small group and they're all psychologists, investors, they all know what CBT is. They all know that CBT means cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay, you can probably go ahead and say CBT, but unless you know for certain that 100% of the audience does specifically that, then avoid the jargon. Another thing is using, let's see if I'm going to say this later. So like words like holistic. We're a holistic solution to, that tells me absolutely nothing about what it is that you do. Lots and lots of companies are saying, oh, we're holistic. That could mean anything. Are you looking at something specific to the environment? Are you talking about like the body? Are you talking about, something having to do with mental health? Like, I have no idea. Are we involving the family? Like, what's going on? So try to avoid buzzwords and phrases where you think you're being super clear, but in reality, chances are your audience that's not enough to specifically define what it is that you do. Remember, clarity is more important than cleverness or being, trying to prove that you're smart, essentially. Specificity sticks and vagueness kills. So that's the same with like winning cases. If I can get really specific and say, okay, at this time, if instead of saying, oh, and then my client was upset. No, at 5 p.m. after somebody ran over her foot with a bicycle, she started crying. Like, that's going to tell the judge that that person was upset. And I'm using very small words and I'm being very specific, and the judge can decide for him or herself whether, my client was upset or reasonably upset or whatever. Same with the VCs. You tell them exactly what you do. We do this for these people, and they can decide whether what you're doing is revolutionary, all that stuff. If your team can't repeat it consistently, it's not ready. So definitely get your one-liner down so that your team can repeat it. You all need to be on a message. You need to be on the same page. And if that isn't happening, the minute you turn away or turn your back and they're saying something else, and for all you know, they're promising things that are not directly in line with what it is that you're actually building or producing, that's a big problem. So generally the pithier, meaning the shorter, the better. try the 3-second billboard test. Like imagine you're driving down the road and you see a billboard and you see this like, little phrase on a billboard. Would you be able to pass by it in 3 seconds, see it, absorb it, and understand what it is that it does? And if yes, then, fantastic. But if not, if you need like a whole very, 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 very long sentence to say what it is that you do, where it's essentially a paragraph with lots of commas in it, and this, and this, and this, and we do that, that's not going to pass that rule. And it's definitely not pithy or rememberable. So what I'm about ready to say is important. It is not legal advice for you because I am not your attorney. So if you have an attorney, check with your attorney, whatever. I'm just letting you know that if you're going to do the whole X known company for Y startup or for Y new industry like Tinder for Jobs, then it really needs to be investor facing and not customer facing, because with investors, you're just trying to see if, you're trying to paint the picture of what it is that you do, like very quickly. But that stuff's not on your website. You putting it in a deck and talking to an investor or potential investor about it, that's one thing. But you putting it on your website where you're trying to get sales, you get sued for that. Now, so there are a couple other companies where they're in my exact space, and you go to their website and they honest to God have Tinder for Jobs on their website. You go to my company, that's nowhere on our website, nowhere to be found. And so I know that Tinder does not give a crap about what it is that we're doing right now, because we are small potatoes. And even our customers who've come out a few months before us, and they've launched and they've got some revenue coming in, and that's great for them, but they're small potatoes. Tinder's not going to bother. Just wait till one of them gets big, because one of them gets big and Tinder realizes that they got customers using their good name. Tinder has every right to go after them if they want to. That's something called goodwill. A company has built up goodwill, or a person like a celebrity has built up goodwill that's attached value to their name, the name of their company, the name of themselves. And if you just use their name willy-nilly to try to get sales for yourself, you can get sued for that and you would lose. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine, she made soaps, and she called one of the soap like the Chuck Norris soap. It had a certain ingredient in it, which I think is disgusting. But anyway, she thought it was like really great and masculine to like have this ingredient in it. And so she called it the Chuck Norris soap. Well, she only sold in like little booths in San Diego. It was not a big deal. Somehow Chuck Norris's people found out about this. I don't know how this happened. And they sent her a cease and desist. So she and her husband, they called me and they said, well, can't we say the not Chuck Norris soap? I'm like, you want to get cute? Honest to God, you get a cease and desist and you want to get cute and you want to use Chuck Norris's name. No, he built up his goodwill. You can't do that. You can't do it. So like, don't F around and get cute. Like change the name of your soap. It's that simple. So I hope that makes sense.